We discussed pathophysiology of diabetes and etiology of diabetes. So, number one is pathophysiology, right? So now we'll see what are the causes, etiology of diabetes. So we already discussed that we have type 1, type 2 and gestational diabetes and MODY. Okay, so type 1 we know that it is immune mediated. There is a progressive beta cell obliteration or degeneration, and we can't do much about it through diet in type 1 diabetes except by managing it. But when it comes to type 2 diabetes, it is mostly lifestyle, and nowadays the research shows that some genes are linked to type 2 diabetes. That means some people are more prone, or some gene is expressed in them that they will get diabetes. Okay, so when we say that, we need to understand the function of a gene, right? If we look at a cell, there is a cell membrane, we have cytoplasm, and this is nucleus. In nucleus, we have what is known as chromosomes. Okay, let's say this is a chromosome, and a part of chromosome which is making a protein. So we all know that these chromosomes, they make proteins, right? So let's say this particular part of a chromosome is making one particular protein, right? So then we say it is expressed, right? Let's see how this looks like. We know that it is a double helix, okay, and right, this particular area is coding for a particular protein. Right. So in genes, in chromosomes, some genes are expressed in some people, some genes are not expressed. Expressed genes we call as like phenotype, and the total genetic makeup is called genotype. Now, the thing is how they are activated, how these chromosomes are activated, our genes are activated. See, there are two types of environmental signals that we give to these chromosomes to get activated. One is like from periphery. So if there is a molecule or a stimulant is coming here and speaking to the cell, right? And this receptor leads to activation of few more proteins, and they come and to the nucleus, and from there they go to the gene in a chromosome, and it is expressed. If, let's say, this is the diabetes gene, diabetes mellitus gene, okay, why in some people everybody has got same set of chromosomes, right? The genes are static, but some people, because of a particular stimulant, it is getting activated and is finally resulting in what is known as insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance or diabetes. Okay? Now, we are telling the story from here. We are not telling what is actually stimulating that gene. If everybody, human genome project, when everybody is like talking about, we all have same kind of chromosomes. It's not like I have this gene and I don't have this gene. Everybody has got all the genes, but something is stimulating. What are different kinds of stimulants that come to the cell every day? If, let's say, these cells, our cells in our body, right, we have like this, okay, and every cell is like supplied by a blood vessel. Let's say this is a small capillary, and in blood we have different kinds of products. I mean, you have proteins, okay, glucose, triglycerides, and white blood cells, red blood cells, RBCs. So this is the internal environment. On top of that, we have different kinds of hormones, right? Insulin is a hormone, adrenaline is a hormone. So different hormones, they are in continuous touch, in communication with the cell. So some of the stimulants in our internal environment, they are talking and they are stimulating this particular diabetes gene, and it gets expressed and finally resulting in manifestation of diabetes. Okay, now this internal environment, that means the biochemistry of your blood, if it is containing repeatedly some kind of stimulants that activates this particular gene, this results in expression. That is one condition. That means what? Our blood biochemistry need to be always in a healthy state. So how do a doctor diagnose a disease, any kind of disease? Is like we take a blood sample and see how many proteins are there, what is WBC count, RBC count, differential count, all these serum creatinine, all these things, cholesterol, we see. So this is decided by, the blood biochemistry is decided by the kind of food we eat. Is it not? The food we eat is digested and it goes to liver, and from there it is entering our circulation. Okay. Now, some people say, I hope this is clear for you, right? In some people, the diabetes gene is like activated. We don't know what is activated in them. We simply say, okay, your parents, they have this gene expressed, and you got your gene, expressed gene in your body, so you have diabetes. There is nothing you can do about it. Okay, that is the story we know till now. But gene by itself cannot produce any kind of protein or cannot be expressed unless there is a stimulus. These stimulants can be n number of things. The blood that is in constant touch with all body cells, the quality of the contents in our blood and the quality of chemicals that are there in our blood determine whether to activate this particular gene or not. This is very, very important. Now let's come back to the story that there is one man, right? There is a man here, and he has got 23 pairs of chromosomes. 23 pairs of chromosomes. So he don't make his own chromosomes, he gets it from his father and mother. Right? Now, they also get it from their father and mother. Now, this guy carries all the information that is encoded in the genes of his grandparents. Right? Now, and they in turn get their genes from these 8 people. So 3 generations back, 8 people coming together, and this man is carrying all their gene pool, collective information of all these 3 generation people and whatever they have experienced. Now, logically speaking, why anybody should stop at 3rd generation? I can go on 2 to the power of 4, that is 16. I can still go on 2 to the power of 5, 32, and go on indefinitely, because nobody made their own genes. Okay, so now what is the implication of this? The implication of this is, see, as a dietitian, you are a counselor, you are an educator. Okay, people just resign to the fact that it is there in my genes. We do a gene testing and say your gene is expressed. There is nothing much you can do about it. Okay, so people give up. They say that, like, okay, I am taking medication, I am on insulin, my life is doomed, I am go. go on like this. But as a dietitian, as a counselor, we have a great responsibility on our shoulders to educate our clients or patients. So the implication of this, what I am going to tell you is, our genes, they contain all the possibilities, right? Let's say there is a big locker room, contains different lockers. Okay, different lockers. So in this, there you have your diabetes mellitus. Here you have hypertension. Here you have cancer. And here you want to have your mathematical ability. Here you want to capacity to sing. Okay, and here you want to become an academician. So all kinds of possibilities, they exist in our genes. But we have to stimulate those genes. So that stimulation, the activation of genes comes from the environment. The environment, by environment I mean two things. One is like your internal environment, that is the blood, the nutrients, the proteins, the hormones we are carrying inside our body. That means internal environment means the quality of the food we eat and the nutrients that are being circulated in our body. And environment, external environment changes the internal environment. Say for example, somebody is depressed, okay, and when we are depressed, the happy hormones are no longer working. Or when we are stressed out, the stress hormones are released. So they go and talk to all the cells. What is stress hormone? Adrenaline and cortisol are stress hormones. So this is your famous adrenaline. When it comes and talks to the cell, the whole physiology inside the cell metabolism changes accordingly. So the cell is stressed. All the metabolic activities are stopped. And somebody is constantly exposed to this anxiety. The way the cell behaves changes. Now, this adrenaline is a result of your external environment. Somebody is stressed out, right? Somebody is always worried, they are in depression. It does matter. The place where they work, right? The kind of school they go in, the kind of parents they have, the kind of relationship they are in, all of them, they matter. Okay, so this is called our lifestyle. So now try to understand why diabetes is more of a lifestyle and dietary disease. If we don't care for our food and we don't watch out for our lifestyle and we don't have sufficient enough sleep and we don't take sufficient rest, okay, and this results in change in external environment, changes internal environment, this affects our genes and this results in a disease. So the scope for us as dietitians is, when we understand this concept well, we can communicate the same thing to our patients effectively and help them. I mean, we can give them a hope. So somebody says like, okay, etiology, my father is a diabetes patient, I am bound to get it. Tell them no, you are in fact blessed. Why you are blessed? Because you are born. Since the gene is already expressed, you have to be more careful with your diet. You have to be more careful with your lifestyle. Got it? So in etiology, genes is the cause, is changing. Right? Now we have a concept called epigenetics. Right? So what it says is beyond genetics, genes. So something else is determining the activity of a gene. Gene cannot think on its own. Gene is a protein factory. Right? Gene is a protein factory. So whatever comes out, whatever is being expressed in this gene is because the environment is asking the gene to do so. So don't blame parents, genes or chromosomes for diabetes. There is a scope. Okay. This is briefly about the etiology. Right? Now we'll see what exactly happens in case of diabetes. Different conditions the diabetes patients present themselves with. So, the clinical picture. So now we finish etiology and we finished this pathophysiology as well. What is the clinical picture? We all know that if somebody is diabetic, we check three things basically. One is like random blood sugar or fasting blood sugar, and second one is postprandial blood sugar, that is after meals, and now everyone is doing this HbA1c. Okay, and there is urine sugar, and of course you can go for urine sugar and urine albumin, urine sugar and urine protein. Okay, now these are diagnostics, but most of us, we think that the cardinal symptoms of diabetes are polyuria, polydipsia and polyphasia. We think that this is the clinical picture a diabetes person is supposed to have. But think about it. What is diabetes? If you were to define diabetes, it is nothing but hyperglycemia. What is hyperglycemia? Glucose, glyc is glucose, emia is blood, hyper is increased. So when your glucose in blood is more than the normal, we call this condition as diabetes mellitus, uncontrolled, right? Raising sugars. But why these things have come? Why these things have come? Right? Let's understand. RPS and FPS usually, if it is below 100, FPS below 100 is normal. RBS below 140 is normal. PPBS it should be 140 to 160. Right? HbA1c now 6.4 is considered non-diabetic. Okay, earlier it is like 7, up to 7 is acceptable, but now it has become 6.4. Right. So let's talk about the clinical picture. Okay, the clinical picture is polyuria, polydipsia and polyphasia. What happens when in our blood vessel there is excess sugar? This is our blood vessel, right? And what is happening? The glucose inside is very high. There are so many glucose molecules increased. Okay. Now, insulin, seeing that the glucose molecule are no longer consumed by the cells on either side, right? Cells on either side, it is not going into the cell because the cells, they don't have demand for this excess glucose. So what should it happen? I mean, it raises normally from 100 to it raises to 200. And once it crosses 260, all the blood is going through what? Our kidney for filtration. Okay. So the blood is moving into our kidney, and whatever waste or excess is coming out through the ureter and is collected in urinary bladder as urine and is excreted out. Okay. Now this blood, the blood vessel that is carrying blood to the kidney, if the sugar level crosses a certain threshold, it cannot filter. Imagine the Bowman's capsule to be like that of a sieve, right? Usually it filters out all the glucose because glucose is a nutrient. It is a digestive end product and body requires this glucose as fuel. By the way, glucose is the only fuel for our brain. Rest of the tissues, when glucose is not available, they can use fat as a fuel and protein as a fuel, fatty acids and acetyl-CoA as fuel. But brain cannot use. So glucose is very essential. Once it crosses a certain threshold, the glucose leaks out in the urine. But this glucose, right, it takes away along with it a lot of water. Takes away water along with it. That means what? Polyuria, urine production has increased. Right? Try to understand this concept. Is it a symptom of diabetes or is it a complication of diabetes? It is a complication of diabetes. It's not a symptom because already your sugar levels have shot up, right? And the body is trying to manage it. So insulin has made lot of fat with this excess glucose. The fat reserves are full. And now the kidney is not able to filter the glucose back into the system. It is leaking out through urine. That means the disease has progressed a long way. Since you are losing lot of water along with the glucose, you feel thirst. So the thirst is increased. Now, as a result of this high glucose level and insulin impairment, remember we discussed in the previous class that the functionality of insulin is lost in type 2 diabetes. So let us assume there are supposed to be, let's say here in this area, in a healthy individual there used to be 6 people insulins to deliver glucose to all the cells. Now since the demand has come down, the insulins, what happened to the insulin? They become dysfunctional. They are no longer available here. Okay. Now somebody had their meal at 8 o'clock and at 12 o'clock again they had lunch. So after breakfast all the glucose had come. Instead of 6 people, now we have only one guy who is delivering the food to all the cells. Right? So the cells are not getting enough food, enough nutrition. So they directly make a phone call to the brain saying that, okay, dear sir, we are not getting enough food. Okay, so the hunger center is activated, though the blood is full of food, since it is not being delivered, the hunger increases. Right? This we need to understand. The clinical picture, don't wait for these complications. We already discussed that the sign of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity is that if somebody is putting on weight and they are feeling lethargic, they don't have enough energy and passion in life, right? This usually happens when people start with their careers. Till the time they are in college, they are very active, jumping, running, playing games, and once they get either married or they get into a job, their life becomes suddenly sedentary. And people put on weight and they don't understand the complex biochemical changes that are happening inside our body. Because we are constantly communicating with our actions to all the cells and organs in our body. People, they don't realize it. We as dietitians need to understand this concept and explain effectively to our patients that putting on weight, especially putting on fat around the waist, is a sign of impending insulin resistance. Okay. Now, if somebody says that, okay, I don't have polyuria, polydipsia and polyphagia, you must say you have an abdominal obesity. That means what? You are in pre-diabetes stage. This is what we are supposed to explain. If somebody is waiting for this, the disease has set in long back and they are experiencing already the early complications of diabetes. Okay. Now, we'll see what are the long-term complications or other complications that happens. So another one is diabetic ketoacidosis. Right? So diabetic ketoacidosis, usually these cases are managed as inpatients, not as outpatients. So people end up with diabetic ketoacidosis. People may end up in coma. There is another kind of complication of diabetes is hyperosmolar non-ketotic coma. This is another kind of complication, and usually hypoglycemia is another common complication of diabetes, because if the dose and the diet are not matched, or the insulin dose is high, or the food intake is less, people end up having, because of more insulin, they go into hypoglycemia. Diabetic ketoacidosis is, we need to understand the concept here. Okay, so let's say this is a cell, right? Now the glucose molecule is coming into the cell, but it is not able to metabolize. It's not able to metabolize, so it needs some kind of food. So when the glucose is not giving energy, the body's alternative fuel is triglyceride. Triglyceride is what? Fatty acid plus glycerol. So the triglycerides, they break down into fatty acids and glycerol. So these fatty acids, they further break down, oxidation, and leads to what? Ketone bodies. Right? Oxidation of fatty acids leads to ketone bodies, and they in turn cause what is known as metabolic acidosis. So we'll do a separate class, we'll discuss about acidosis and alkalosis, both metabolic acidosis and metabolic alkalosis, as well as respiratory acidosis and respiratory alkalosis in separate class. Only thing, the blood is becoming acidic because of ketone bodies, production of ketone bodies. So this leads to diabetic ketoacidosis. Acidosis because of ketone bodies. This is one presentation, one clinical presentation, usually managed in IV patients, and we have limited scope, because it is an emergency. We have limited scope through nutrition to manage it. And hyperosmolar non-ketotic coma, the same thing. Only thing is, here there is no ketone body production. The sugar level goes up, and there is severe dehydration, right? Because the sugar level usually goes beyond 500 milligrams, 700, 800, 900 milligrams per deciliter. So that excess sugar is pumped out of the body, and along with that there is loss of excess fluid from the body, and leads to dehydration, resulting in coma. Okay, these are some other early complications. Earlier complications. So what are the long-term complications of diabetes? So we'll see what clinical picture and long-term complications, right? So now we are done with clinical picture as well. Now we'll see what are long-term complications.